y'all better appreciate the fucking production value on this, because you have absolutely no idea how long it took me to trudge a whiteboard out here in the freezing cold. Okay? I'm going to give you a good view of the whiteboard, and I'm going to jump back and forth to talking so that you can actually see everything here. So the topic today is idealism and materialism in communication, which is an attempt to bridge something in my personal life and something in my neurotic political brain. Okay? Once you get into neurotic Marxist politics, you cannot get the materialism out of your head. And all of a sudden, everywhere you see performative, idealist, liberal notions all over the place. And you start thinking, why aren't you focusing on the material conditions more? Why aren't you focusing on the material stuff in every aspect of your life, including the personal life? So for me, how this materializes is that I am very bad at receiving advice. Before I tell you why, I'm going to tell you what idealism and materialism are. I'm not going to waste a ton of time on it. Basic idea, idealism is ideas. It's changing your mind. It's the idea that the world can be changed by changing your mind. This matters in politics a lot of the time because you'll be trying to change the hearts and minds of the people in order to change the political situation. Maybe you become an artist and you try to change people's minds through art. Materialism, on the other hand, says no, actually it's the systems and incentives we live inside of that shape us. So a great example of this would be like if we had paid everybody $1 million, if the government created a program that would pay anyone $1 million to go around murdering people. You get $1 million for every person you murder. I think there'd be a lot more murder. That's because they've created an incentive structure to do murder. It's not because we've convinced the entire population ethically that murder is good now. You know, it's not that we've changed their minds. It's that they like money. It's that they like money and they like what it does for them, having money. So that's the dichotomy between idealism and materialism here. And I'm applying it to communication and personal relationships. So I would say that idealism is in communication is when you believe that relationships heal when minds are changed. Okay? That is how good things happen in relationships and in conversation and in life. It's when minds are changed. Materialism is when you believe that it's when actions are changed. When people's actual material actions change, that's when the healing starts. And this has led me to have almost an annoying pet peeve, probably annoying to the people around me in life, that I hate advice. I hate receiving advice on anything, because I find it to be almost always easier said than done. I'll give you a great example of this. I had a coworker the other day. I had just come into work and I was in a little granola bar and drinking some water as a little breakfast as I started my day. And he comes up to me and goes, "Oh, no. You really shouldn't do that, okay? Standing while eating is bad for you. And standing while drinking too, yeah. You should really be sitting down and eating and then going to work." And I'm like, wow, okay, thanks. It seems like he's failed to consider that that's easier said than done when you have to work all the time and you kind of gotta keep on the move. And I was literally eating a granola bar. He really expects me to, in an 8-hour shift of work, sit down every time I have a sip of water? That sounds obnoxious. That sounds like it would worsen my life far more than it would make me healthier. I don't feel like that's a worthy trade-off. Another great example would be going up to somebody and telling them that smoking is bad. Going up to a smoker, being like, did you know that that's bad for you? Yeah, everybody knows. Everybody knows smoking is bad for you. That's not the problem. The problem is the substantive addiction that they have to smoking, that they keep going back to it. It has absolutely nothing to do with not knowing it's bad for them. They know it's bad for them and they do it anyway. So I think advice is often idealistic. In the traditional sense of trying to change people's minds rather than being focused on like material things. So this also gets involved in relationships. This affects relationships. One big example, I would say, if you want sort of an extreme example, an abusive relationship. I can imagine, hypothetically, an abusive relationship where a man is hitting his spouse. And they have conversations about it. And she clearly communicates to him that she's not happy with that. And that that's bad and that he shouldn't do that. And he communicates with her reasons to empathize with him. Reasons to see why him doing it makes sense. Reasons to see why he's frustrated, why he's stressed out, etc., etc. And at the end of the conversation, it probably feels to both parties like they had a conversation, like they did good communication. They're doing what we're supposed to do. They had healthy communication and they talked about it. Isn't that such a big emphasis we always place these days in relationships? Everything is all about communication. You can do anything in a relationship as long as you communicate really depthfully and you really touch each other's souls. But the thing is, communication is often a leveler. Communication is often an equalizer. It makes both people's conditions and life experiences equal because they're both empathizing with each other. If it's going well, if they're communicating right, they're both empathizing equally with one another. But a man hitting his spouse is not an equal dynamic. There's an inequality there, and to equalize it through communication kind of feels wrong to me. In fact, it feels like it could help someone to rationalize a real physical material harm. So that's the basic idea of idealism and materialism in communication, is that communication solves nothing if he keeps hitting you, right? If he keeps hitting you, then talking about it is not a solution. You gotta just probably cut that relationship off. But what if what we're talking about is a little bit less explicitly material? This is my second claim, okay? Emotional harm is an action. This is where things start to get fuzzy, because emotional harm that happens over the course of usually conversations, over the course of people just saying things to you, being and material action kind of breaks the framework I've established here, but it also doesn't. I'm going to give you sort of a personal story, an example of this. I had a situationship, let's say, for a while, and it was going in like a very ambiguous place where it wasn't clear whether things were platonic or not. And at some point, she decided that she wanted things to be platonic. And the way that she chose to go about that was by telling me I was unattractive to her. Immediately after being with me intimately, right? Like one day, intimacy, next day, well, I'm not really attracted to you. I found that insulting. I didn't like that very much. I would say that caused me emotional harm. But then we talked about it. And you know what happened? We both felt like shit. We both felt terrible. She felt bad for hurting me, but she also had like her reasons, right? She had her reasons. She was trying to keep things platonic, keep a solid platonic line, which was kind of a noble goal because things had been labelless for a while, right? And we had a long talk and we both just felt like shit afterwards, and it accomplished, I would say, nothing. I don't think it was very positive or constructive. I think it was painful and unnecessary almost. And at the end of it, I remember walking away and being like, hey, fuck you. You didn't even really apologize. You can't just do that. At one point in the conversation, she even tried to sort of subjectivize it. She was like, well, you know that me saying I don't find you attractive doesn't mean I'm saying you're unattractive. And I was at first I was literally confused. I didn't know what she was saying. I'm like, it sounded like you just said the same thing twice. She's like, no. You know, attraction is subjective. It's not. You could believe it is if you want to. That's not what this video is about. Attraction is subjective. I'm not saying that you're objectively unattractive. I'm just saying that I'm not attracted to you. Doesn't matter. Still a shitty thing to say to somebody. Still an emotionally harmful thing to say to somebody. And kind of feels like trying to back up doing a bad thing, rationalize a bad thing that you just did. So yeah, that I think brings me to sort of the last point here, right? Which is that labels contain objectivity. The whole, just because I don't find you attractive doesn't mean that you're objectively unattractive. This is going to happen a lot in a toxic or an abusive relationship. This is what a lot of like gaslighting is, right? Most gaslighting, right? Let's talk about that concept for a second here, right? Most gaslighting is not somebody literally saying, that did not happen to you. You are wrong. What you saw literally didn't happen at all. That's like a 101 level technique, okay? You don't want to pull that. That's too obvious. People know that you're fucking with them if you do that. So what you do is you just sort of bend things a little bit. You redefine things just a little bit so that the same action could be perceived in slightly different ways. Then you're not denying reality. You just have a different view of reality. I'll give you another personal example here. At one point, this person I had a sort of a situationship asked me to platonically suck on her nipples. Now, I think this one is pretty blatantly not a thing. That's not a thing. I've learned, this is one of the ones where if I tell a normal friend this, they're immediately on my side, actually, which is kind of refreshing. If you tell a normal friend this, they're like, yeah, no, that's not a thing. You can't platonically suck somebody's nipples. I mean, where's the line here? If we're going to be blurring the meaning of the word platonic to the point that one can platonically suck someone's nipples, then it has no meaning at all. None of these things have any meaning at all. And we're doomed to relationship anarchy, whether we like it or not. Yeah, so that was, well, maybe you do like relationship anarchy. Maybe that'll be a different video, why you shouldn't like relationship anarchy. But, the goal, I think, in her mind, was kind of noble and sincere. She had kind of a hippie conception, I think. I think she had sort of a hippie mentality, a hippie conception of these things. Of like, well, smoking weed, why does it have to be sexual? Can't we just make things what we want in our own mind? See, this is the materialism again. Again, I'm saying no. You don't get to just make it something different in your mind by reframing it or thinking about it differently or having a different set of ideas about it. I'm rejecting that because it causes way too much harm. I'm saying no. You don't get to recontextualize it. It is what it is. Labels contain objectivity. There's more to say on this, I think. In that context and in that scenario, I was in a position where I didn't feel like I had a lot of options in terms of actually getting to be treated the way I wanted to be treated. So I was pressured into a situation. I wasn't pressured by anyone. I was just pressured by an absence of other options. Right? I was pressured by an absence of other options into feeling as though My choice was either allow her to define every one of these actions however she wants, however loosely she wants, or nothing happens at all. I either get to be alone, or I get to play by her version of the rules. She gets to tell me what reality is. She gets to tell me what happened. She gets to tell me whether emotional harm happened or not. Or I can be alone. It's my choice. That's not really much of a choice, though, is it? Kind of like the choice of working for money or starving to death, huh? Starting to kind of sound a little bit familiar to the Marxists, huh? Kind of a non-choice at the root of things here, right? The other thing about labels containing objectivity is that, like, how far are you going to take that idea? Is fucking platonic now? There's got to be some sort of an objective basis. And if the objective basis isn't something like biological, because you could say that the reason fucking is non-platonic is because it's a biological thing that typically, inherently, creates a certain response from people. In the same way that punching someone typically inherently creates a pain response in them, because that's what physically happens when you do it. Right? In that same exact sort of a way. You could root it in biology, but you don't have to with everything. Sometimes you can root it in a shared cultural norm. This is a pragmatist philosophy I'm doing here now. I'm adding a little pragmatism into my materialism here, which is, I think, a beautiful marriage of two unholy ideas. The pragmatist philosophy basically says that the word means what most people use it to mean, and that it matters what most people use it to mean, and that you as an individual do not get to just shape it to your own will. Maybe you do to a little bit of a degree, but if you want to be understood by others, you have to speak their language. That's the whole thing. That's what language is. You can put together random syllables and intend them to have a meaning all you want. You can make your own language and then walk around town speaking it at other people and insist that it has a meaning, but they won't understand it, so it's not useful. It's not practical. It doesn't work. It doesn't function. And I think we want relationships to function. I think we want to adopt a set of ideas that allows relationships to function and thrive. Oh. Amen.